The Brexit Party, as it was, UKIP, now Reform Limited Company Party, whatever they are, have been on GB News. I mean, they're on there all the time anyway, but Ben Habib was on there, and he is claiming that Labour didn't win the election. Also, Ben Habib then claimed that Keir Starmer is anti-British, which is the most ludicrous thing I've heard. It is really very irresponsible of them to be making such ludicrous claims, because it's a threat to democracy itself if the result, and such an outstanding result as Keir Starmer ensured, is questioned. And they're now wanting to claim that the popular vote wins elections. Well, it doesn't in this country, and it never has, and it is never going to. So trying to wear people's faith down in democracy with lies and misinformation is incredibly dangerous.
Yeah. How long do Labour and Sir Keir Starmer have before they come under real political pressure with migration, stopping the small votes?
It's already done. They've exhausted any sort of grace period that they had as a government. They're done.
But is it not the case that their voters aren't particularly concerned about the small votes crisis anyway, so they wouldn't lose much support?
The entire United Kingdom is concerned with our borders.
Indeed.
Absolutely. The Labour Party did not win the last election. It was the Conservatives that lost.
Sorry, can we have a fact check on that particular point?
It's true that they received less votes this election than they did in 2019.
No, I'm sorry. This is absolute nonsense. We can't change the goalposts under our election system, which is completely nonsensical. Labour Party won. You can't just say Labour Party didn't win.
They have an overwhelming
The Reform Party certainly didn't win.
They have an overwhelming majority in Parliament, no doubt. But they do not have popular support.
Yes.
And small C Conservatives, which are right across the political spectrum, left, middle and right, all want our borders enforced. They are proud of this country, they want to protect this country, and it is people like the Labour Party, and particularly Keir Starmer, who is basically, in my opinion, anti-British.
What a ridiculous thing to say. What a ridiculous thing to say. He disagrees with you.
His inability to put first the interests of this country. He doesn't do it. He is interested in some kind of global agenda, and immigration isn't on the list of his...
Why do right-wing people always say
right-wing.
this? But no, I'm sorry, Ben. Why can't we just say across this panel that people have a different conception of what is in the national interest? That's why you compete for election. That's why people either let you... You can't... But Ben, it's a really important point. It's a really important...
You cannot have a nation without borders. Jonathan, you can't have a nation without borders.
For you to call your opponents anti-British, I find really offensive.
Starmer is anti-British, I'll say it again and again.
I would never call you anti-British, even though I think that your vision for Britain is absolutely horrendous. I would never call you anti-British.
Last word to you, 20 seconds.
It's perfectly reasonable to have that particular perspective and to actually believe that Starmer is an anti-British, because ultimately, if you don't believe that he is aligning with your vision, that's a perfectly reasonable response to have. And if you don't believe that immigration is being restricted and you see what's happening across our country, you can claim that the person leading it does not care about the country's future.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm sorry, Keir Starmer hasn't even got the courage to address the concerns of people who are worried about migration and the changing of their culture and society. He just brands them all as far right.
No, that's not true, Ben. It's not. No, sorry, Ben. We have to debate in facts. He did not say that people who are concerned about migration were far right. That is a lie. That is a lie. He said that the people who are turning up to torch asylum hotels and to throw bricks at mosques were far right, because they are. But we have to be absolutely clear on this. People who are concerned about immigration are not far right. I would never say that. No one sensible would say that.
I'm glad you're not on that bandwagon. Thank you very much.
The Reform Party, who I think are anti-British, because all they do is criticise and moan about Britain, and they have nothing good to say about Britain. They never have. They've criticised everything about Britain and then identified scapegoats like the European Union or migrants. And now Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, it's always everybody else's fault, and they're the only people that have got the solutions, so they say, despite the fact that they said Brexit would solve the immigration problems that we didn't have, that we do now have because of Brexit, and only they know how to solve them. Well, it's just poppycock. And here's a clip to remind you of when Ben Habib even managed to revolt Julia Hartley-Brown, who was pretty far right, with his plans for small boats.
But it's a really interesting question because it goes to the heart of many things in this country at the moment, including the reluctance of the government to give effect to a proper Brexit, which is that we seem to have defeated our ability domestically to pass laws and make policies for the United Kingdom that are good for the United Kingdom. We seem to wish to take the knee and are prepared to take the knee to international institutions at every opportunity. And what this bill, this now act, or will be an act shortly, seeks to do is to say to the courts, you cannot not deport someone to Rwanda just because it's Rwanda. And the only individual in this country who can take note of an ECHR ruling as far as Rwanda is concerned is a government minister. And then the government minister can decide whether or not these interim rulings are given any effect. But, you know, the proof of the pudding is going to be in the eating. And it'll be interesting to see whether government minister, Secretary of State, in this case, James Cleverly, will have the courage to ignore an ECHR ruling, given that so many Conservative Party MPs are pro-membership of the ECHR in the UK, which we so often do. You know, a convention is passed, a treaty is entered into, and we gold-plate it and adhere to it to our own great detriment if necessary, whereas other people take a more practical approach to life.
Okay.
But
what would Reform UK do to deal with this issue?
With illegal migrants?
Yeah.
Well, you don't stop the boats by deporting people. The way to stop the boats is to physically stop the boats. The reason Border Force is called Border Force is because they're meant to use force at the border. We've forgotten what border control means. Even when Rishi Sunak talks about stopping these boats, he does it in the context of being nice to the people who are crossing the channel.
Okay, but how do you stop them? What are you going to do? You're just going to stop them in the middle of the channel and just, take them back to Calais? What are you going to do? You establish a force that's well trained and well equipped and capable of intercepting these dinghies, and you stop them entering our territorial water, and you require them to turn round. You require them to turn round. They go, we're not going to turn round, we're just going to keep going.
And then you have a standoff. You have a standoff in the channel, and if necessary, you have to use force.
And then all the migrants jump into the water. What do you do then?
And you might. This is one idea. Provide them with another dinghy in order to climb back in.
And then they say we're going to keep going to England. What do you do then?
And then you use force again. And I'm afraid...
So at some point, the Royal Navy or any other body, the Border Force, they're going to have to pick these people out of the water or off a dinghy that's not seaworthy. Okay, and at that point, what do they do with them? Do they take them back to France or not? What do they do with them?
The presumption in your question is that we have a duty of care to people who are seeking to enter our country illegally.
We have a duty of care to people drowning in the channel, yes.
Well, we only, by the way, under international law, Article 98 of the UN Convention of Law of the Sea, we only have an obligation to save people if it's reasonable to do so. And under the same international law, we have the right to turn people back who are seeking to enter our waters illegally.
I understand. I love it, turning people back. At the point when they refuse to be turned back, or someone just puts a knife into the dinghy and it starts deflating, or they jump into the water because they've been told that's what you do and then you'll be picked up. You know as well as I do, anybody who has ever been on a boat will know that the rules of the sea are very clear. You have to save life where you can save life. And that is what the
only if it's reasonable to do so.
But it will be reasonable to do so because there'll be people drowning.
I don't think it's reasonable.
Are you genuinely saying the Reform UK policy is we will let people drown to make a point? Because I think that's what you're saying.
No, Julia, if someone comes... let's not infantilise these people. They have free will. They were safe in France. They paid good money to get on a boat seeking illegally to come. So I'm not going to infantilise them. And I'm not going to be held to ransom by their claim that they deserve protection as soon as they get into our territorial waters. I agree with all of that.
At the point when they use the tactic of jumping into the sea and they're drowning, are you saying that British Border Force and the British Navy will be instructed not to rescue those people from drowning?
You didn't hear me. I said that we could, as an idea, provide them with another dinghy into which to climb and then go back to France. And if they choose to scupper that dinghy, then yes, they have to suffer the consequences of their actions.
Then you would leave them to drown?
They cannot, absolutely, they cannot be infantilized to the point that
I have
we
no doubt, Ben,
become
that is a policy that would work quite well. However, that is not a policy that a civilised country should endorse.
Why is that uncivilised, Julia?
Because we don't leave people to drown, because we're civilised human beings. I don't want these people here. I don't think they should be infantilised either. But I wouldn't leave someone to drown. No, I wouldn't. I don't think there's anyone in Border Force or the Royal Navy who would do that.
Well, I'm afraid border force means using force at the border. If we're not prepared to use force at the border, we will have open borders. And the presumption of your question goes to the heart of the problem in the United Kingdom. We don't protect our borders because we don't have the political will or courage to do so.
I agree with you on that.
Border control is a physical process. It's not a legal one.
We have to collect them from the water and then remove them back to France, whether the French like it or not. I can understand that as a policy.
Dinghies and they can go, or you give them a boat which they can't splash again, or you give them lifesavers and you tell them to swim back into whatever. You can have any number of options to deal with the problem. What you don't do is give into the blackmail, effectively, of we are here, we're going to self-harm ourselves unless you take us to British shores.
Okay,
you don't give into that.
Ben, I'm genuinely. I don't. I mean, as much as I want this issue solved, I couldn't ever sign up to that, and I don't think most civilised people could. I really don't. No matter.
Well, I don't think it's uncivilised. I think it's a matter of border enforcement.
Right, Ben. We're going to have to leave it there. Ben, Habib, I very much appreciate.
All that the Reform Party do is find things to get people to moan about them and blame others. And this has happened before. It happened in Nazi Germany. And we all know where that ended up. And as we can see from Ben Habib's suggestion on how to solve the small boats crisis, which they created with Brexit, that they have no humanity and they don't care who they hurt as long as they win power. Anyway, you're about to watch my pet cow Flash get her treat, which are some apples. Sorry for some of the wind noise. I will leave some of it on so you can hear her chomping away. And if you haven't subscribed, do subscribe and comment below. Let me know what you think.
You are greedy. Ow! Watch my...